morning, everyone. Welcome again to Code Emotion Amsterdam. How are you doing? Good. So thank you very much for enduring the heat with us yesterday, and hopefully we are not going to suffer the same heat wave. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We are already a little bit late, so I'm not going to talk for hours. Differently than yesterday, we are not going to mess up with the time, so the keynote is going to be slightly shorter, and all the times that are written down on the agenda will be respected for the talks today. I have one announcement to make. We have, unfortunately, another speaker that couldn't come. Matthew Ravel was going to talk about how SQL didn't really die with NoSQL, but he is not going to have the chance to say that to us. Fortunately, though, Jess has another talk that's very consequential to the keynote speech she's going to give here, so she will be filling in for Matthew. Before I leave the stage to Jess, I would like to thank you very much for the buzz you have been generating on social networks like Twitter. It's been amazing. So please keep up doing that. That's been really awesome to see. That said, I would like to leave the stage to Jess, which is a program manager at Dream Factory and founder of OpenCode and co-founder of Transcode, doing many things. I assume you have no spare time.
I don't really like sleeping. No, it's a bit boring.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much and enjoy.
No. Hey. I trust everybody's feeling really, really good right now. So today I'm going to talk to you about sort of the costs of the cult of expertise. And that's a really fancy way of saying I want to have a conversation about whether or not we're valuing skill properly in technology. And I think being a speaker is really difficult because I really care about what you have to say, what your opinions are. So I'm going to have a little bit of a Dadaist keynote. So there's going to be some interactivity, and it's going to be hopefully not too bad. To give you a little bit of background about myself, my name is Jessica Rose, and I'm actually an American, so very, very loud and very, very happy, but living in the UK now, so gently apologetic and very, very into waiting in line. So I know some of you may have been out last night, so this is going to be very loud and very happy, and I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. I'm especially happy to be in the Netherlands. Like, I was a linguist before I got into technology, so I was a linguist and a language teacher. And I am really, really into Dutch idioms. So I think, unfortunately, the peanut butter. And my favorite one is now breaks my wooden shoe. So if any of you want to come up and start a conversation later and teach me more Dutch idioms, I'm going to be really excited about that. If you don't have time, my Twitter handle is just down there. If you want to tweet me Dutch idioms, that's going to make my entire week. And I'm here talking to you in the morning of the second day of the conference on purpose. Speakers often call this slot the hangover keynote. Was anybody out drinking last night? I love how two of you are like, yeah. I find that the hangover keynote people are weirdly a lot happier about interaction. So I say, hey, raise your hand. They're like, fine, fine, fine. And a lot of that comes from being a teacher. Having been a teacher, I want to get some class or audience participation. So I've got a really exciting soft microphone, which I've been assured will not injure you if I throw it at you. So at a couple points during this, I'm going to ask your opinions and ask you to sort of give me some feedback, and ideally get to throw that at you, so it's going to be pretty cool. Right now, I'm the head of developer relations at Dream Factory doing some cool open source stuff. But I'm actually going to jump back to some work I did before I started with them and tell you about some work I did when I was doing some consulting work with talent. So I worked with a lot of underrepresented talent, so people who were adults looking to move into the tech industry, or people who had left the tech industry and wanted to get back in. And from that, I started doing some work with companies. My network has a lot of women in it, and I tended to get a lot of companies who had grown to a certain size, And they were getting a little bit worried. They're like, well, you know what, there's 30 of us, and we're all white guys. We should probably hire somebody else. So I'm going to tell you a story of when I went in to help someone try and find a developer, and how this got me thinking about how we value technology and how we value skill. So I came into their office, lovely office, nice coffee, beer on Fridays, and they told me that they wanted a developer. Okay, that's why I'm here. That makes a lot of sense. And do you know what? We want a developer with 3 years of .NET experience. That's fine. I can do that. 3 years of .NET experience. I can help you find somebody. That's going to be great. And 2 years of C#, please. Okay. .NET, C#, you often see these skill sets together. That's going to be fine. That's no problem. You'd like them to be really great at graphic design and to have their own copy of Photoshop. Okay. Well, and I start being very gentle because they're going to pay me. It's like, well, you know, maybe. But they kept talking. They said, also, by the way, we want to make sure they're great on the front end. Say, maybe a little bit more forceful. Say, oh, well, but they didn't stop talking. I said, well, we also want this. And I had stopped trying to say something at this point, because I'm just going to let him finish, because this is completely reasonable, right? And of course, they continued. If you say stuff like this, you don't know when to stop talking. So I said, Jess, of course this is a junior role. So we're looking to pay, I don't know, maybe 30,000 euros, so that would be fine. If we could get one of these, you know, ideally a female developer, just to balance things out, that would be fine. And that's great. And I come in very gently saying, well, this might be challenging. To be honest, I've only ever met one person who does have this skill set, because this skill set's weird. I didn't say that. Say, oh, and you know, it happens to be a female developer, and they are actually in the area, but they're in no way junior. So you'd probably have to, I don't know, roughly triple what you'd like to pay, and I can see if she's free. And I start taking a little bit of a detour and talking to them about how they were shaping their requirements. Say, okay, if you're going to make a job listing, if you make a checklist, it's going to give you really limited opportunities to recruit underrepresented groups. I said, do you know what? Forbes came back and said, and I think it's often quoted, that men apply for roles when they meet around 60 to 70%, and women don't really apply until they meet every single button on that checklist. And I'm always really, really cautious about quotes. So I went back and dug into the original study. And that's from a HP study tracking internal applications. So nice, solid data saying, do you know what? When we're looking at people putting themselves forward for promotion or putting themselves forward for more senior roles, women are only coming forward when they meet every single one of those requirements. I didn't say, and your requirements are insane. At this point, I'm wondering if they know what they're talking about. And I think they're wondering if I know what I'm talking about, because they said, just get me this person. And I said, I think you're dumb. So I start saying, like, this is not going to happen. I only know one person, and just she's not going to come in, and it's only one person, and stop, Jess. We already had somebody come to us, an applicant without you, who had all of these skills. Check, 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 check. And I don't live in a big city. And I'll use a fake name. She's great, so ask me later and I'll introduce you. She says, oh my God, Marissa? Did Marissa apply? She's like, yeah, this woman who you happen to know in our small town with all of these insane requirements applied. And I'm wondering, why do you need me here? What's this about? You have someone who's applied. I mean, they're not junior, so pay them more. And it's done, right? But they kept talking. They said, well, she came in and she interviewed, and I guess she has all of the skills, but she just didn't really interview very well. So we want you to bring us somebody else with this skill set. And I finished my coffee because it was very nice, and I left. I didn't really return their emails. Until they came back and said, oh, you know, we don't need your help. we found somebody to fit these requirements. We hired someone for this role. So, okay. Did you give Marissa the money she needs? No, she was terrible. We hired a recent graduate. He's so good. And that's fine. But this really got me thinking about how we value skills, how we value the ability to get something done versus the ability to talk about what you want to get done. Interviewing well, presenting well, self-promotion versus being able to do the thing. And this is the big question that I want to open up to you all. This is what I want to throw you a microphone for. In technology, what do we take as proof of expertise? What do we consider proof of expertise? How do people show that they're experts? And it's difficult because I think Dutch audiences are especially shy. Does anybody want to give me sort of, oh, come on. I'm going to throw this as far back as I can. Y'all throw it to the lovely chap in the glasses. Oh, Jesus Christ. We can cut that out of the video, right? I'm going to let y'all throw it amongst yourselves because my expertise is clearly not throwing deceptively light squeeze boxes. Yeah, we'll play hot potato, which is just tell me what you think we use as a proof of expertise and then throw it on.
No problem.
Hey.
Ooh. Actually, the whole no C#, no ASP.NET, blah, 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 is very interesting. But from my perspective, it doesn't matter which program you know, what programming language you know, or whatever. The only thing that's interesting is how smart you are at computers. So when I interview somebody, it's usually tell me what you did and please explain the various nuances of what you did, etc., to see whether he or she understood what they were doing. If they understood what they were doing and the design was good and they found fault at the right places, then that's fine with me.
Cool. So one way in technology we can sort of define and identify expertise is by finding people who are able to describe their processes. Does that sound fair?
No, not bad. Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else? Tell me, how do we identify experts? What makes us think that someone's an expert?
I think that, there we go. Are you catching? No? You raised your hand. You want to catch?
I love it. No, God, no.
Yes, I want someone who already failed enough times.
Ooh. Yeah, so you think an expert's somebody who's got evidences of failure. Oh, dear. Oh. I swore on stage a couple talks ago, so I've been very careful not to do that. So it's going to sound a bit like a Disney show, or like, oh my, oh heavens. Yeah. So what do you think? When we look at people in technology who are the experts, how did they get there? Did they work hard? Did they describe their processes? Did they... Yeah. How do we let experts self-identify? I love how y'all are like, I was out drinking, please don't give me the box. Oh, over there.
Ability to deliver.
Ability to deliver.
And answer difficult questions, not kind of quiz questions,
Yeah.
but in real life, to reason and answer that kind of questions.
Cool. All of you are being really diplomatic and looking for really valid reasons that people can become experts. Do you think everybody who is taken as an expert deserves to be taken as an expert? The folks who aren't necessarily the most skilled but get to be the experts and the thought leaders, how did they get there? Oh, there's somebody behind you who I think wants the... it's a really lovely lady in a... This is going to look weird on the video where it's just me going...
I think some of the people that get the higher positions are the slick talkers.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite examples. Do you know a great way to be considered an expert is to grab a microphone? I talk at a lot of different conferences. I've been offered jobs as enterprise technical architects. PHP developer. And yeah, a lot of things that, oh God, you do not want to pay me money to do. So a lot of times self-promotion's a really great way to sort of get yourself as an expert. If you're willing to say, I'm a thought leader, people go, oh, well, that's a thought leader. All right, let's do this. And are we valuing skills properly? So when we go into an interview, are we testing for the ability to do the thing? If I need you to be a web designer, am I really being fair if I ask you, hey, I'd like you to be a web designer, but to be a web designer, can you make sure you're really good at writing CVs? And also, could you be really great at interviews, please? These are the requirements. These are the skills I need before we'll go ahead and let you do your core skills. Get your hands up. This is my favorite one. I think, so the video is not able to see your faces. I promise not to tell your boss. I promise not to say it on your LinkedIn. Who's left a job because your skills weren't properly being valued? Who left because, I love asking this question because everybody's face is just like, yes. For those watching on the video, it's about, is half of the audience sounds fair? There are actual business costs. There are actual costs to your company if you're not properly valuing skill. If you're working with somebody who's not necessarily carrying their weight and not necessarily making things happen, and they're getting paid more than you, and they're getting valued more than you, and they're getting more credit than you, you're gonna move on, right? You better move on, otherwise I'll come and fuss at you. And I think I always like to look at it as expertise versus skill. For me, skill feels like the ability to do the thing. And expertise, being an expert, often feels like the ability to tell other people how good you are at doing the thing. Sometimes they're found together, but often I find that the people who are the most able to get things done and the happiest doing the real work aren't always the people who have the skills for self-promotion. Self-promotion is its own skill. Self-promotion is a unique and separate skill. So who thinks self-promotion should be a skill that you absolutely need in your job? Who here works a job where you get credit, where it's part of your job to self-promote? What? It's pretty sweet, eh? But when you're hiring, take a look at whether or not self-promotion is the skill you need. If you're looking at a potential employee's Twitter followers, if you're looking at a potential employee's conference talks, if you're looking at potential employees' ability to present themselves as the best of the best, unless those people are client-facing, or unless those people are actively recruiting, or unless those people are in outreach, what are you doing? Self-promotion is an amazing skill if it's something that forwards the company's needs. Self-promotion is an incredibly irritating skill if it's a team that doesn't do this. And I think one of the things that's most challenging for me is looking at the question of who's identifying skills for us. When we look at our communities, when we look at our developer communities, when we look at our online communities, when we look at our open source communities, who's getting to choose who the experts are? And I think this is different for all of them. I think in the workplace, we're often having employers sort of self-select and re-identify who's the best of the best. And I think communities and open source communities, we've got this really incredible chance to decide for ourselves. One of the challenges is the people who think they're the best, the people who are really ready to put themselves forward as the best of the best, they are not always the best of the best. Does anybody know about the Dunning-Kruger effect? Hey, the Dunning-Kruger effect is my favorite cognitive bias, which is incredibly nerdy. Actually, Matt Revell, I'll be taking over his slot. I'm going to be talking quite a bit more about cognitive biases. So if you come to that, pretend you haven't seen this part. So back in the 90s, a bank who here's ever used invisible ink? Like you put lemon juice on a piece of paper and it's invisible until you heat. Wicked. Bank robber in the 90s. Really, probably solid dude, I bet he tried hard. Covered his face with lemon juice and then robbed a bank. And was very surprised when the police came to get him because How could they have seen him on the video? And Dunning and Kruger sat down, two guys from Cornell, these great researchers, and said, hey, Dunning. Yes, Kruger. I like to imagine they were eating breakfast together. Do you think stupid people know they're stupid? I don't know. We should get some grant money. We should study this. So they took about 2,500 people and they gave them an aptitude test, just a test to see how good they were. And I love getting to talk about this because the word quartile is my favorite English word. It's the only time I ever get to use it. And this is a really predictable sort of slant you would expect on tests. Say, hey, we gave a bunch of people this test. Here's how their scores were. But right after giving people their test, they asked everybody to say, hey, before I give you your scores, here's a chart. Can you show me on the chart how you did relative to your peers? Can you show me how skilled you are? And you would be shocked that and Dunning and Kruger were really solid dudes. They were much nicer than I. They didn't say stupid. They said least skilled. Very diplomatic. They said, do you know what we found? That the least skilled rated themselves artificially high. These are people who are too stupid to know they're stupid. These are people who have such poor skill level that they're like, well, I'm clearly great. This test was hard for me, and I'm a genius. So all of those other suckers. And that as you get towards increasing competency, you're more and more likely to devalue your own skills. That if you're incredible, if you are legitimately the best of the best, you're undervaluing your own skill relative to your peers. I'm going to run through really fast what valuing expertise poorly costs us in teams, costs us in communities, and costs us in individuals. I'm going to look really fast at maybe how we can fix that. When you're looking to hire, who here is in a company where you're hiring right now? Keep them up. Who's been hiring for the same role for more than 3 weeks? More than 3 months? More than 6 months? More than a year? What are you doing? When you're looking for talent, think about the skills that you really need. Do you need somebody who's able to say, oh, I've done all of this before, and lie very convincingly? Or do you want somebody who's easy to get along with, a good communicator, has most of the core skills, let's say, 60%, and is ready to go ahead and skill up on the job? Skilled, non-traditional talent is often going to carry additional value. So the turnover rate in most technology roles is a little bit under 2 years. Most roles you're going to be rehiring for in 2 years. And that is expensive. It's very, very un-PC, but I like to say one of the interesting things is if you look at statistics for people who stay in technology roles longer, single mothers stay in technology roles up to 4 times longer than traditional talent. If you're looking for folks who have skills that other companies are going to be a little bit, what's a nice way to say it? Less quick to pick up on. If you're going to look at people who don't necessarily look like an engineer and don't necessarily look like an architect, if you're able to identify those skill sets and meet them and appropriately value those skills, you're going to have an incredible chance to pick up talent that other people are, I'm not going to say too stupid, but not skilled enough to work with. Look for the process as well as the results. I think that one of my favorite things to do is get people to talk through. The gentleman in the back said, talk me through how you would build this. Talk me through how you would fix this. Talk me through how this happened. Don't tell people to list their accomplishments. You're going to get happy braggarts. Get them to talk you through something they're passionate about. The most important thing, unrewarded talent will leave your companies. We looked around, half of you have left a company because you weren't being properly valued. If you're not properly valuing your teammates, if you're not properly valuing your employees, they're going to go. They can work wherever they want to. Okay, that's quite a bit of doom and gloom. How do we fix that? Ask to see the skills. Ask someone to show you. Ask someone to show you what they built, instead of asking them to tell you about it confidently. Test for the skills you absolutely really need. Who here in your company has some kind of process to test for communication skills? One of my favorite things to do in interviews for technical roles is to do pair programming. Does anybody do pair programming in their interview process? Okay, wait. To do this the magic Jesse way, you need to get an intern, And you need to ensure that intern that nothing bad is going to happen to them. You need to tell them they're not going to get fired, okay? If you're interviewing a senior person or a middle-range person, have them pair program with an intern or the most junior person on your staff. I like to think that all of you would be charming. You would all be on your best behavior in an interview, right? You would be shocked with how many senior-level people and how many middleweight people are actively abusive to juniors when they pair program. I've seen people yell, I've seen people swear. It's a really great way to find who you don't want to work with ever. Using blind auditions, so using bias-free selections, a really great way to see who's actually got the skill sets without any of the biases we don't really notice ourselves carrying. Okay, race through that. I'm really conscious that I want to keep you all on time so we still have coffee time. I'm insanely passionate about communities. And I think communities are a really unique way to look at expertise because it's so democratic. When you say, do you know what? We think this person is one of our experts. We think this is a community leader in the Node community. That's something we really get to select as community members. We get to pick our heroes. We get to pick our champions. I think communities are amazing, but we need to make sure that in communities, in these democratic processes, that we're looking for skills and we're looking for expertise and we're looking for contributions that don't come from expected sources. So who here has used an open source project that had terrible documentation? I'm shocked. For those of you on the video, that was goddamn everyone. That's not really swearing, right? Take a look at who's building the things that you really need, that are beautiful, that are valuable, that aren't things that you really, really look for first. Go find the documentarians. If it's not creepy, give them a hug. Value the people who are making your communities and making your products and making things you care about more valuable. And we deserve better heroes. Loads of people who are well-respected in communities often act like jerks. I think tying the ability to grow the community and the ability to foster other community members and the ability to mentor into our heroes and into the people we look for as community leaders is going to make everything a little bit less miserable. Just like your company, unrewarded talent will leave. Who has ever left an open source community or a developer community because you were not getting the attention you deserved and nobody appreciated what you were doing? Oh, way fewer than the company. I think y'all have a lot of community loyalty where you're just like, I'm just going to stick it out. It's fine. It's fine. But it's a real and meaningful cost for communities in the same way it is for companies. If you're running your own open source project and you're not valuing the skill and you're not valuing the time of people who take part, I'm not sure that it's really going to be valuable long term. How do we fix it for communities? What are quick and dirty tricks to make things better? There's rarely quick and dirty tricks to make things better for communities. It's a grassroots approach. But I'd ask you to be suspicious of self-styled experts. The folks who want to grab the mic and get on stage and tell you why what they think is the most important thing, take that with a grain of salt. Just be like, okay, that's an opinion. You don't have to raise your hand and be like, well, this is more of a comment, you're wrong. But you can be a little bit suspicious, and you can look for other opinions from quieter people. Look for where the value in your community really is. Look for the people who are making things better. Look for the people who are mentoring. Look for the people who are fixing that documentation you hate. Look for people who are really fighting for processes. It's a really incredible way to keep people in the community. Highlight incredible people and projects. Who has used social media or GitHub issues, or who's had a bit of a fuss about an open source project that had something that sucked? Okay, the Dutch are way nicer than most of my audiences. Usually it's just like, who here has gotten in touch with somebody from an open source project to tell them you really like this feature, tell them that you really like this? Oh, if the UK leaves the EU, can I just come and live with y'all? Take the time. I really like happiness packets as a great way to get things done and say, hey, I like this thing you built. Hey, I love this thing you made. Individuals and expertise. This is amazing. I'm going to do this in 1 minute. Ready? You need to understand your own skills and value. Look at your peers, ask them what they're making. Don't be shy. Go ahead and say, hi, I see what you're doing, I see what you're doing. What am I getting out of this interaction? Interview for other jobs, even if you don't want another job. Find out what other companies would pay you. Be aggressive and make sure people value your time. The zone of proximal development is one of my favorite concepts. You need to be able to understand your skill level and understand your value, not just so you're getting paid right, or not just so you're getting appreciated, but so you can learn. Your brain has a sweet spot, which is level dependent. If you're doing things that are too easy for you, you're not making meaningful learning experiences. If you're doing things that are too hard for you, you're not learning anything either. You're just being a bit pissed off. By making sure that your skill is valued in your community or in your role, and you're being given level-appropriate material to work with, you're giving them back more value. By asking them to appreciate where your skill level is and what they can do, you're making sure that you're going to be more valuable for them. Do you all know the sort of English phrase, getting what you deserve? It's usually pretty negative, eh? I want all of you to get what you deserve in the nicest way possible. Maybe you don't care about money. Really? And maybe you don't care about appreciation. Maybe you don't care about people saying, oh, you know what, this person did this amazing thing. But by advocating for yourself, you can get what you deserve in the best way possible. I always say to my mentees, right now, someone who's doing what you're doing, who is less skilled, is being paid more than you. This should make you angry and motivated, and probably angry again. As an individual, how do you fix it? You've got these incredible skills, you're wonderful, you're charming, you've got great communication, and you're not being properly valued. What can you do? Self-promotion is a skill. You can get better at self-promotion. You can get better at advocating for yourself. Who wants to spend a lot of time and energy self-promoting? For those of you on the video, that is, 2 people, maybe? But let's say you don't want to self-promote, and you're not being rewarded. I'm sorry, you gotta leave. There's a wide open market. There are so many demands for your skills. If you can't find somebody smart enough, and you can't find somebody empathetic enough to value what you're bringing to the table, go and find somebody smart enough to recognize how wonderful you are. Thank you very much.